Listening to it. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we're streaming. It's hot here.
Is Angie ready?
I got it turned on. Yes, but Andy's got to step out of there because she got
Good evening
softball.
and welcome to tonight's meeting on June 29th, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand.
Give me 1 second. Have to answer this one.
Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business will be recognitions. There are none this evening. School's out, so we haven't had kids tonight.
Mr. Huggins, I will say though, I will attempt, we've had participants at both boys and girls state this summer, so I'm going to see if we can get if the kids are willing to come in, we'll try to get them recognized.
Yes, that's a great honor for us. Next on the agenda will be delegations. First on the list will be Clint Bolliard, U.S. Army Mission Assurance, CIP MAA Team Logistical Analyst. Is this Bolliard?
No, actually, Mr. Huggins, I believe we have Mr. Holloway, who's the battalion commander. Mr. Holloway, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear most of it. It's a little bit echoey.
Okay, Mr. Holloway, we're at the portion of the agenda where you can discuss the program. We do have the PowerPoint is also up on the screen for the board's review, and they have physical copies and digital copies of the presentation as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Before you proceed, Mr. Holloway, Mr. Kisner, can you hear us okay? Mr. Kisner? I think we lost Mr. Kisner. Mr. Kisner?
Technology is wonderful.
He's having phone calls.
Yeah.
Just one moment, Mr. Holloway.
Yeah, no worries.
This is Cross.
Okay, Mr. Kisner, we got you back on the line. Sergeant Holloway is about to present in regards to the civilian infrastructure assessment. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you have any problems hearing, just please let us know. Okay, Mr. Holloway, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Holloway. I'm the commander of the West Virginia Critical Infrastructure Protection Battalion, also known as SIP. The slides that you see in front of you are a real high-level overview of generally what our unit does around the world for critical infrastructure that's been identified through different leaders across the Department of Defense. What we are trying to do locally now is extend that same concept out to the local communities. Obviously, we're starting close to our home there in Kingwood. That's where our unit resides at Camp Dawson. And we're starting to branch out and do a little bit more of the local infrastructure piece. So we're excited for the opportunity to try to connect with Preston County Schools and start to get some assessments going. The overview slide you see in front of you here, the assessment that we conduct, it's not an inspection, so we're not going to ding anybody on any gaps or findings or issues, things like that. We're also looking to expand upon what we use from a benchmark perspective. So the benchmarks are really just a set of guidelines that we look at that focus on different areas. If you could move forward to the next slide.
Okay.
So yes, our team will show up in civilian attire. We'll try to blend in where we can. Some of our guys and gals definitely stick out more than others, just the nature of it. But we'll be there to come in and work with the different leaders and representatives around the school to understand some of the key aspects of the assessment. If you go to the next slide with high points, that will give you some of the areas that we're going to focus on.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so the first and foremost that we look at, obviously from a military mindset, is physical security. That's where the bulk of our experience or education lies for a lot of our soldiers. And then following that from the cyber, emergency management, and so on. So we can customize those a little bit depending on the needs of the facility. But generally speaking, those are the areas that we use. And again, there's hundreds of pages of benchmarks that we use to assess each of those areas. Any questions so far? I know it's been a lot real fast.
No, we're good.
Okay, on to the next slide. Once our team has come in, we'll sit down with some of the key leaders, the key staff members of the facility, talk through some of the items, walk through, do our assessment. After that, we take all that back and we do a write-up. It takes us a few weeks. We have a lot of, obviously, our whole team is part-time. So we drill roughly every quarter of the year. And then we have a couple weeks of active duty training throughout the summer as well. And so scheduling these will be a little bit tough. And then the follow-up might take a bit longer than 3 to 5 weeks, but it just depends on the complexity of the write-up and the number of recommendations, gaps, points to consider, things like that. And that really kind of wraps it up as far as overall slides go. Clint Boyard's contact information is there at the end. So you'll have that as a reference point if you do need to reach out to us. And then Mr. Martin, you have my number. Feel free to reach out directly. But again, I'll pause for any questions. If Mr. Martin, you might have to relay them due to the echo, but I'll stand by for questions.
Okay. Sergeant Holloway, one thing that I tried to clarify with Mr. Bolyard, the desire is for the team to come in on a date when we do not have students in session, but you would like to have staff present if possible?
I'm sorry, that you broke up there pretty bad.
I'll come closer.
Wasn't able to get the whole question.
Just a second, he's coming to another microphone.
Okay, Sergeant Holloway, the one question I had for Mr. Bolyard would be is if the intent, is the preference for the team to have a date when students are not in session but staff is available for interviews and so forth? Is that ultimately what the team, from a scheduling standpoint, is that what you guys are ultimately going to be looking for?
Yes, ideally. Now, we don't need the entire staff present. We would need staff in the facility, especially those that have full building access, because we do need to get to a lot of different parts and places of the building. And then those that are familiar with the focus areas that I covered on the previous slide. So those that know the emergency management plan or have, quite often it's those that have written it or manage it at their organization. Thinking maintenance or, services type staff, the people that know where the boiler is and know where the network lines come into from the street. Who's your vendor for communications? They're just those types of people who we would need to have. So again, it's not everybody. It's really the people that work within the facility to keep the facility itself up and running.
And certainly, we could work to that end. I don't believe that would be a problem at all, sir. Okay, board members, do you have other questions, board members? I appreciate you all reaching out. I think it's something that could be of great mutual benefit. It gives you all an opportunity to go out and utilize your team. But certainly, it's a great service to the school district. So we're very appreciative and excited about the opportunity for you all to come out and work at Preston High School. Mr. Seymour, do you have any questions or concerns? Well, we have Principal Seymour here as well.
No, I'm just looking forward to it. I'm always going to get more secure.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything
Thank
else,
you,
board
absolutely.
members? Okay,
No,
well, sir, we
thank you,
greatly
sir.
appreciate you, and I'll follow up as we need to schedule for a prospective team visitation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Look forward
sir.
to the outreach, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Kesner, you still on the line?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He's muted.
It's on tape delay.
Sorry, Mr. Kesner. Okay, Mr. Huggins.
Okay, next on delegations, Ms. Jill Ziegler and members of Kingwood Elementary School Pre-K team. Ms. Ziegler, I'll let you introduce the ones that are present, please. And thank you.
Good evening. I have with me Shelley Schaefer, who is one of our pre-K teachers, and our incoming principal, Samantha Peasley. Shelley?
We just wanted for you guys to hopefully consider putting that fourth preschool at Kingwood due to the sheer numbers that we have of incoming IEPs for our preschool students this year. As of now, we have 19 IEPs that are incoming at Kingwood Elementary School. We have 3 preschools at Kingwood, but only 2 of those 3 preschool teachers are certified to service the children that have been identified with IEPs. And our maximum caseload for that is 8. So that means there are 16 children that can be serviced between Mrs. Malden and myself. That leaves 3 children that would not be serviced if we cannot get another preschool special needs teacher. And then sometimes during the school year, we wanted to point out, this year alone, I had 4 more children in my class that were identified as needing IEPs as the year went on. A couple of them were for developmental issues, some of them were from speech. But no matter what the IEP is for, it counts on our caseload of 8. So that number will increase as the year goes on.
We'd just like to add, if we had the 4th pre-K class at Kingwood Elementary School, we are centrally located in the county. There's already busing in place. We already take kiddos from Rollsburg on a daily basis when they're incoming pre-K kids. Of course, they're sent back, for kindergarten and things like that, but we could take those needs as well. There's not a lot of extra things that would need to be done in the event that we were given this position at Kingwood Elementary School.
Any questions?
Do the 3, this, because I don't know the answer, do the 3 that's you're over right now, they still have to be serviced at Kingwood, correct?
They are enrolled in preschool, yes, at Kingwood Elementary School, correct.
Are they from that attendance zone?
Yes.
So all 19 are from the Kingwood attendance zone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then how many total students are currently enrolled in pre-K at Kingwood?
Currently, right now, we have a number of 57 that are totally enrolled.
It's 59 right
59, okay, so
50.
it's grown by 2.
So you have 59 enrolled, and how many total can we have with
Well, 60 with 3 classrooms.
60 with 3 classrooms?
But there are special considerations with the numbers of special education students being serviced there, correct?
Okay.
So we're short because of the 3 special ed,
Yes.
if I'm understanding that.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank you for your consideration.
thank you, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration. And one more thing, we would like to congratulate Mr. Martin and the Model Schools team.
Thank you.
On their national presentation this week. We heard rave reviews, so congratulations, and they did Preston County proud.
Thank you guys very much, appreciate that.
I'm glad you added. I actually was going to say something in his report, but it's better coming from you guys.
I have it in the superintendent's update.
Okay, got it. Next on the delegation is Miss Beth Kearns. Are you Miss Doctor, Mrs.? I just have a first name. Okay. Okay, I'll go with Miss Kearns then. Okay, I wasn't sure because I embarrassed myself one night because it was a lady had her doctorate and I didn't know that. So I didn't want to embarrass myself twice.
Still on the wish list, but not accomplished.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Kearns is here as the director of the Libera?
Libera, just like Liberty for freedom. That's what it's based on.
Well, in West Virginia. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you and then there's questions and that stuff.
Sure. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to explain more about Libera and tell you my own experiences with the Libera groups that I've already done in Preston County schools, as well as we are statewide. I started with Libera as a volunteer 3 years ago, went part-time about a year and a half ago and left the 37-year healthcare career to go full-time as the program director simply because of what I had experienced with the students in Preston County. So that's kind of how I got to where I am right now. Which one can I hold?
We can
This
take
one?
it. You can pop the one out and just need to turn it on, Ms. Kearns. Hold on.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you. So just a little more history about myself. I was born and raised in a small Appalachian town in Ohio, first generation, college educated, below the poverty level. So it is absolutely my heart's desire to work with the students that we are working with. In Libera, absolutely, we give them self-confidence building tools with the groups that we do, as well as self-awareness to help them figure out what their biggest barriers may be, is to keep them from thinking and believing that they can accomplish anything as long as they have the right resources. Originally, our format was 6 to 8 weeks, an hour at a time, where we would go through the Libera program. But since I took over as program director, we have also adapted that format some so that we can I have done 1 day, full day programs just to give the girls a basic overview. We also do like condensed half days for a couple days. So I'm open to any opportunities just to be able to present the materials and to be able to give the girls the ideas and the tools that they need. The biggest issues that I have seen that we have been able to help girls deal with is not fitting in, especially with the middle school girls, feeling like they're not enough, to quote them, and just how to find it within themselves to be able to believe in themselves and move forward. Go ahead, thank you. We are evidence-based. We have been working with Dr. Elizabeth Clayton through the WVU Department of Psychology for 3 years now. And we are also working with Walter DeCasaretti, who is a specialist in the Department of Sociology at WVU for girls in Appalachia who live in the poverty level and have been exposed to or victims of abuse. And this is just, these statistics came from the CDC. And girls have a tendency to feel less self-confidence and less able to deal with life than boys in general. And part of the 30% increase in the eating disorders, Dr. Elizabeth Clayton, her research has shown that by going through the groups, we've been able to recognize how the girls can better understand if they have disordered eating. And then we have a lot of resources that we can provide them. We don't counsel them in any way, but we can set them up with a counselor. We refer them, of course, to the school counselors, but we also just give them information on how to have a better idea about healthy eating. Go ahead. So these are, again, statistics from the CDC. The quote is, the reference is on our webpage. But just in West Virginia alone, 1 in 5 children, as we know, live in poverty. and this is of the survey that we did, 42% of their biggest fear was feeling rejected or abandoned. I mean, that's a common middle school, feeling anyway for all middle schoolers, but we were really kind of surprised that it was that large of a number. So that's just kind of what we help them do, is figure out how to figure out their strengths, and the connection and the closeness that a lot of the girls have developed in the groups has been pretty impressive. One thing that I can honestly tell you, the group that we did at Central Preston this past year with 6th graders, they developed such a connection, and a couple of them hadn't actually been close friends, how middle school can be. But by the end of the time that group was finished, they asked if we could come back next year so that we could follow that same group, because they said, we're going to be dealing with different things next year as 7th graders as opposed to 6th grade. So I talked to our executive director, and I also talked with Lincoln? Yeah. And we're in agreement, if you all decide that we're able to continue to do groups, that we're going to go back and work with those same girls in addition to offering groups to other girls in the counties. I myself have done the full school assemblies where we do the body safety, the shield assemblies, small groups at Rollsburg, Brewston, Central, and South Preston. So, I mean, it's just amazing to see a lot of the results that we get. I too do groups in foster residential facilities in Ohio County, and I go into the juvenile detention center in Ohio County and we work with those groups doing the exact same program because it benefits everybody. The main mission of Libera is just to listen, because oftentimes everybody's lives are so busy, and sometimes the kid just needs somebody to just sit and listen to whatever's happening for the day, whether it's a parent lost their job, they're worried about a test, or it's just basic things. So we listen to them non-judgmentally, we love them, who they are, where they are, and then help them try to, like I said, uncover their own mindsets to help them flourish. Go ahead. Learn from them, absolutely. I can tell you I have learned so much from working with the students. Definitely terms that I was unaware of, and my sons are 31 and 29, so that's a little bit removed. So go ahead. And this is just a basic overview. Each week this is what we cover. It's what Libera, how the word got made from breaking each week down. Listen to their story. Illuminate the lies. I often will use the word barrier, because to me sometimes a lie is something that you're always going to believe, but a barrier is something that you can move past. Believe in the truth of your potential. Envision the future. We do art projects with them where we bring in magazines and art supplies, and we just have them create a poster of what do they see happening in their future, careers, homes, jobs, pets, where they want to travel. And that is always one of their favorite activities. Reach for the resources. Those are ones, of course, that we provide. And then a light. We've actually had 2 of the people that have gone through our group in Ohio County that kind of have become more interested and want to go into the schools themselves, as far as like a peer advocate that wants to go into the school. So, go ahead. So these are our 3 main programs. Of course, the Libera groups, as I said, and very open to various formats. The body safety assemblies, and then the love packs. We were given a grant so that every foster child in West Virginia was given a mental health backpack. And to date, we have delivered 6,100 of those to pretty much every county in West Virginia. Some of the more remote counties right now, Mingo, Roane, we haven't made it there yet, but, and there's cards in there for them to fill out and send back. And we often get input back about how much it meant to just, and in the backpacks are toys. They're all age appropriate. All the information about the foster care ombudsman office, the letters for that, how to get in touch with that. But there's also journals and resources about mental health awareness and just fun books to read. Okay, go ahead. And this is what I was talking about. This is the evidence base from Dr. DeCasaretti and Dr. Elizabeth Clayton. They have quantified, we've collected hundreds of surveys from the girls we do it before and after, and everything's completely anonymous. When they fill out the surveys, we don't know, if it's in school and they have access to the internet, they can do it online. Otherwise, we just have them fill out a piece of paper so that we can identify them. But they've been able to measure the significant decrease in anxiety and depression. Go ahead. So our goal is 7,000 foster youth, or there are 7,000 foster youth. We've delivered, like I said, 6,100. These are what we have accomplished so far. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just getting started. So last September, we were given an Appalachian Regional Commission grant, a very large grant, to establish our mentorship program for aging out foster youth. And that's specifically one of the main groups that I would really love to be able to do here at the high school. And it's a 2-year mentorship program for anybody that's been in foster care. So 15 to 24, they can even have graduated already. And we have a woman that is a program that worked for West Virginia Junior College. So we have a complete resource base about funding for them to get into secondary education, companies that we have partnered with that are willing to give them job skills, sort of like a barista or, something that they might be interested in. But we have mentors that work with them one-on-one, check in with them every week. We have a Google Classroom that they can, go to access all the resources, and we'll follow them for 2 years once they enter the mentorship program. And this is what I would really love to focus on this year because our grant helps cover all that. Go ahead. Oh, and the employment at our social enterprise. We just hired our 3rd part-time girl at the office that was a foster child. So they're currently going through the program. And at the social enterprise, they're learning business skills because they learn about ordering, they learn about the shipping, how do you create the box, what goes in it, how do you find the best prices. So we have 3 of those working part-time at the office now. The goal is to have 10. Go ahead. And it's called the Lila Bear. It's a subscription box that there's a new box released every quarter. And we've just released our 2nd one, all based on STEAM activities. The first one focused on Katherine Johnson. The 2nd one that we just released, we partnered with Miss West Virginia, and it was focused on agriculture, farming, and she put a lot of information in the box, and the activities in the box, like there's a Lego that they build specifically for us. The last one was a cow, and just a lot of information in there. The next one is going to be focused on the New River Gorge area and the building of the bridge and everything like that. Go ahead. So this just gives you an idea that, each box is $30, and it also helps fund the payroll for the people that are working at the social enterprise. In our office, we opened maybe October, I don't honestly remember exactly, but it's behind Suburban Court in Morgantown, in one of the empty buildings there. Go ahead, Ms. Schaefer. These are some of the corporations that have given us money to donate, and then we just take the boxes to the schools, and it doesn't cost the children anything, and just seeing them light up literally when they get their box. And one of the schools that we worked with, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which county it was in, they actually made it their parent hands-on event, an evening working with communities and schools. So the parents came to the schools and they worked on the boxes together with the students. So, and that's the other, I am have worked with 6 counties so far with communities and schools, where we actually train the communities and schools staff with the Libera model overview, and then they can just have ongoing groups as they want to throughout. We fill the gap, yeah. With the columns, the peer support groups, but it's mental health support. We do have a licensed professional counselor on staff. And I'm also in the progress of trying to line up a couple other, I'm sorry to have my back to you, community resources. The Brandon Wellness Center that's in Barber County, we're trying to work with them that they would be able to accept students too. Because at no time do we think that we can counsel the students at any point. You know, we're just there to listen and then refer them. And the school counselors are absolutely amazing. I have so much respect and appreciation for them with all the ones that we have worked with. It's just, they're amazing. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Ms. Kearns, I know one question that's come up before is, before Libera works with any group, there's definitely a process. It is an opt-in process for parents to choose for the children to participate, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And what the way that we feel that it has worked the best is we go to the school counselors or some of the staff and they recommend to us who they think would be the best and would benefit the most from the group. So that's just, I don't want to use what school it was at, but one of the counties and one of the schools that we worked with, there was a child whose parent was incarcerated. And just for her to come and to be able to sit and just talk, and cry, or just to say, I feel really sad. Of course, there was substance use disorder involved with that, but it's just an opportunity for them to have a safe space to feel heard. Any other questions?
Do you have a limit on how many you take?
We, at a time, we try to cap each group at 10 simply because there's better connection and better dialogue within each group, and we don't want to lose it. If we're going to do the small group format, at South Preston, last year we did the entire 6th grade, all of the girls, and we did a one-day overview. So all the girls in that grade were able to be exposed to it. And then from that, the girls that felt like they needed it more or their parents wanted them to take part in, we did another small group as a spinoff from that.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. You could be operating multiple groups within a given school.
Oh, gosh, yeah. We have groups going on in multiple schools within the county. We have in Preston County, actual residents of Preston County, I believe we have 12 of our listeners. So our listeners are volunteer. Several of them are retired teachers, retired counselors, but they go through the Libera model themselves. And then there's additional 30 hours of training that they have to go through, and every month they have to do additional training. They go through mental health first aid, suicide awareness, just multiple things, just so we can be the best resource.
Have a good one.
Go ahead, Mr. Kismet.
No, sorry, nothing at this time. I'll have a comment during discussion.
Okay.
Anybody else? I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Kearns.
And Mr. McCrum, you signed up. Do you want to speak or just on the other?
One thing I would say, Mr. Huggins, there's a voting matter in regards to Libera on this, on the delegation agenda.
Okay, so I need to.
I think we would probably want to take recommended action.
Right now.
It would probably be more in line with, while Ms. Kearns is present.
Okay, Ms. Kearns, Mr. McCrum, hold up a second. Mr. McCrum, hold up. Thank you. Mr. Martin is helping me here. So we need to move down to
There's a motion.
on 5, right?
No, under the delegation, there's a motion in regards to the proposed MOU and service agreement between Preston County Schools and Libera for the 23-24 school year, which was included amongst the attached documents.
Okay, let me go back. I missed that. Where do I? Okay, so it's there. Okay, I apologize. So, but there's not a motion.
I have a motion. There's a motion in there.
Is
This
this,
is an action item.
that's what I'm saying, do I get down to the action? I don't know where I got to read that. You've got me confused.
I'm not sure why that's not in there, Mr.
So that's why I didn't know.
I'm sorry, did somebody make the motion?
Not yet, Mr. Kisner. We're trying to find, okay.
There you go.
We're having problems with me finding out where to go to. Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion for the board to approve the proposed MOU and service agreement between Preston County Schools and Libera. I did it wrong again. For 23-24 school year.
Second.
I need a
You
motion.
need the motion. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Ms. Feathers. Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, can you state the motion clearly into the phone, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Kisner, can you repeat, please?
Can you state the motion clearly into the
Sure.
phone, please?
Yes. The recommendation is made for the board to approve the proposed MOU and service agreement between Preston County Schools and Libera, West Virginia for the 2023-24 school year.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
If I may, I've had email correspondence with Ms. Current and Ms. Herring, the founder. I appreciate both their time. I do believe that they most likely are doing positive things in the system. However, when asked directly if the foundation of their organization's origins was based in the idea that all females need liberation, I did not receive a negative response. In regards to how would you respond to a student who is questioning their gender, they did not give a response from either them, a mentor, or their psychologist. The resources that they post from their website are not educationally based, are not factually or scientifically based. But as their resources, I assume that they align with the way they would respond to a child in question. For these reasons, I do not believe that an educational system such as the Preston County school system can give children them as a contact, as a mentor, as someone to help them with an issue of this nature. Furthermore, they contend that they don't have direct contact with children without parental supervision or parental agreement, not supervision, but agreement. But they did confirm in their email that there have been students that have contacted them directly outside of the parents in initial contact. So again, I would urge the other board members, we cannot work with an organization that does not give our children and our students sound, educational, factual, scientific answers to their questions as an educational resource.
Yes, Mr. Kisner, I do want to, now there was an attached document with a response to your initial two questions. Did you get an opportunity to review that? And it is included in the agenda under the administrative section.
So I did get to review the response from Ms. Herring originally, and it did not answer any of those questions directly.
Okay, there's a section in the agenda under the administrative tabs. There were answers to both of your questions. Those should have been emailed and they're included within the agenda packet.
I apologize if they've been posted since I prepared for the meeting. In that case, I would move we table the motion until I can review them into a future meeting.
Are you asking for a motion then, Mr.
He made
Kidd?
a motion to table.
You're making a motion to table it?
Yes, I move that we table the motion to accept the MOU to the next meeting.
Before you do that, Ms. Currents is here. Do you want her to answer now?
Yes, Ms. Currents is still present. She could come to speak to that point if you'd like.
And then we can still table it afterwards if you want, so you can review it. But she's here, so you could get a direct answer.
I appreciate that offer. I am trying my best. I know that my current situation is not her fault. I do wish this would have been addressed in the past 2 meetings when I was there present. If she would like to, I will do my best to follow along.
He's just saying it's difficult right now with the circumstances with not being physically present, but.
Okay, so.
Point out in motion
Wait.
to table stops all discussion.
But it's okay.
Second.
I know that. We're okay. We're also trying to make sure we're utilizing our expert that's here. But I do thank you. So it's been moved. We do have a motion on the floor to table.
Is there any,
Need a second first.
I'm sorry. Well, I'll second it for the purpose of
Well, then we're done for discussion at this
asking a
point.
question.
Okay, so it has been moved. Ms. Feathers, second to table it. So really at this point, that matter is on hold.
I'm happy to try to answer this question.
But we can't do that at this point.
We haven't voted to table.
Okay, that's correct. We have a motion and second to table. Okay, so that is a roll call. Mr. Kisner?
Yes, I move the table.
No, wait, can't we have a discussion about
No, I
tabling?
want you to table it. That's when the vote comes in. Am I wrong?
There should be a discussion about the motion, shouldn't there?
Angie's wrong.
My-
I think we're done at that point. I think at this point, we have to vote on the table.
She can discuss tabling it whether or not.
I'm just asking if tabling it, is there any time restraints? By tabling it, are we missing out
Oh.
on any type of agreement or?
I could place the same materials on the July 10th. We have a meeting, pretty quick turnaround on a meeting because this one was pushed back. So I don't know that obviously Mrs. Currents might not be able to be here in person, but we certainly could get the content back on the next agenda if that's the desire of the board.
I'm happy to do whatever I need to do to be here.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Kisner, we do a roll call. Mr. Tatham?
No.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Mr. Huggins?
We're doing your table. It's been moved and second. We're voting on it. You voted yes to table. Mr. Tatham has voted no.
I apologize. Can you repeat that one more time?
Okay, there was a motion to table, Mr. Kisner, made by you, seconded by Mrs. Feathers. Mr.
Yeah.
Huggins was in process trying to take a vote. You have voted yes to table. Mr. Tatham thus far has voted no to table. They still need to get 2 additional votes.
I'm sorry. Yes, I move the table.
Okay.
Yes. To table.
Yes. So it will be tabled until the next meeting, Ms. Kearns, if you can be here.
Could I add with that also? I guess I didn't quite understand the list of questions since it was only the answers. If we could be included in that, if there is
Sure,
an email stream, we don't have to respond, but it'd be much easier if we heard both sides, both the answer and the question. And also just trying to afford the board member his due process.
Okay.
Not that I agree. Sorry.
Okay.
May I
That's-
ask what information you would like for me to bring that would,
What we'll do is have Mr. Kisner email, and I guess what we can do, Mr. Martin, let's pick a date where we can have stuff emailed.
I just wanted to add though, the 2 questions that Mr. Kisner had posed are included in the the initial question and the response, that was pulled straight from the email correspondence.
Right, but he had a lot more to say, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm asking him as well.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, the two
No,
questions
yeah.
that he asked for me to pose to Mrs. Currents, that's what's been supplied to the board.
Which
as
made
the
a lot more
entire-
sense once I heard Mr. Kisner,
Gotcha.
what he was saying.
So what we'll do, ma'am, we'll have if you have other questions for her, have Mr. Martin emailed by Monday?
I would just ask, yes, we have to have the agenda up by next Wednesday for the next meeting. So I would just need that no later than, I would say, next Thursday, because I can still do ads up through Friday.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mrs. Currents.
thank you.
I still have your cards.
Oh, you have one.
Yes.
You gave me two.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. McCrum. And thank you for bearing with me messing that up. That is true. I was in first grade. He goes, and just in case you wondered, I'm 61, so that means he's known me 55 years.
I wasn't good.
Okay, the items that I would like to bring forward, they're actually questions. On 3B on your agenda, you're asking for a new special ed program at South Preston. My question is why? At 3D, why only a half-time special ed program at Roseburg? Continuing second part of it, continuing the K2, a 3-grade program at Roseburg. I taught 3 grades at Independence in 1965, 66 for half a year. I was exhausted. I'm aware also of parents who have enrolled their children away from Roseburg simply because of the K2 program and the older split program that we used to have at Roseburg. 3F, what are the duties of the surrogate parent? I could not see any in the information that was provided on your agenda. On 4A, why only math in middle and high school as needs of special ed, special needs or and of course, special ed needs countywide. Why are we not putting in all of the programs for which we have no teachers as special needs? Are we limited in the number of programs that we can list? That's an issue that will need to be answered. In 4B, countywide, or is it only bus drivers? Is it all service personnel? Or is it only bus drivers we are listed as areas of critical need? And 4C, why all the changes? I thought all areas were done when I was on the Board of Education with computers. Had the rules changed? In what way?
Okay. Mr. McConnell, I just want to make sure I've got all of your questions here.
Okay.
You indicated first 3B, and that related to, can you repeat? I didn't.
You're asking for a new special ed program at South Preston. Why? In 3D, those are Rollsburg specific.
3B is the service personnel agenda, so that's why.
I asked the question. You can interpret.
Okay, I'll look through the service agenda, I'll see what I can find up. You were asking about a halftime, the halftime
Special ed
special education
program at
position at Roseburg as to why it's halftime versus potentially full-time.
Yeah, instead of versus a whole program.
You'd express
Of course, the K2 3-grade program that we have run at Roseburg for at least 2 years.
Okay, so also questions, concerns about the split classrooms at K2 and in 3 through 5.
Yeah.
You want clarification of the duties of the surrogate parent?
Yes.
And on 4A,
Why only math and middle high school as needs of special needs? I mean, critical need as well as special ed countywide. Why not all areas without? Where you don't already employ somebody. Why can't you do that?
Okay.
Take it as special need because Mr. Zigray last year taught an entire year science in Mon County. Now, he had days off, I'm sure. But I don't know if that was his full year contract or how it was set up. I don't know that.
Okay.
And then 4B, that's countywide, or is it only bus drivers that you're considering special critical need? Are you counting secretaries and aides and cooks and janitors, or just bus drivers? Because the only thing I saw in the agenda is bus drivers.
It is specific. Okay, I'll go through what I can right now, Mr. McCrum, and then there may be a few that I'll have to circle back. Sure, you go right ahead, sir.
And then 4C, why all the changes?
Correct, with the tech.
Especially with computers.
Okay.
Has there been additional things that have popped out? And I don't expect an answer tonight on any of that.
Some of this I think I can, and then certainly I'll try to get with you on anything that I can't directly answer tonight.
If that's okay with the president of the board.
I would just address them as we get through.
It just, as we
If
get
you
through
can.
them, I mean, it's going to hit there.
Because I'm just asking questions here.
Is it okay to answer these responses, Mr. Huggins, or I can hold off? I can respond to some of this.
Go ahead and respond, and then we'll go on.
Okay.
What you can.
Okay. Mr. McCrum, the first item, I'm going to have to look at the service agenda specifically as to what you're asking. But okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, in regards to the halftime special education position at Roseburg, I know that Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Varner have met with the Roseburg staff. They have looked at the initial potential caseloads, and they feel that while it's teetering on where they would need to have a full-time, they have left it at a halftime position, and the problem is if they add that to full-time, they're commit to a full-time, and if we were to see student movement and so forth. So there's still a possibility that position could evolve to a full-time position if the caseload totals at Roseburg will warrant that as such.
You could also move students to another school, right?
No, we're just going to.
Yeah, I want to try to answer specific to this.
Okay.
Yep.
In regards to the split classroom, it's just based strictly on the current enrollment totals at Roseburg. They have very small numbers of students per grade level, which we've sought, advisements from the State Department. It is a legal process. It is fully understood. It is a challenging teaching environment for sure. But as of right now, that is still the intent to continue with the splits as currently constructed. In regards to the duties of the surrogate parent, I could look through the MOU, but specifically, I know that where that's probably most often utilized is in situations where, for example, we have students that are housed at the local rest care that do not have a local parent or guardian to, for example, to sit in on IEP meetings or other potential legal proceedings that involve the child. So in this instance, this individual would step in as a surrogate in a situation to represent if the child does not have a parent or guardian to step in those particular situations. 4A. The one thing that Mrs. Varner had alluded to with the critical needs policy, as we continue to, so that's what we're assessing right now, has been traditionally positions, math and special education have been traditionally where we have seen large totals of vacancies. We can continue to add additional positions. We had some elementary classrooms last year that we were unable to fill, that we modified the policy to ensure that for example, that those individuals working in those positions were afforded the opportunity to work beyond the 140 that are typically required by the retirement board. So that could be subject to potential addition that could be brought before the board if the need arises to alter that policy. It would just be basically an add-on. It wouldn't require a full policy redo, for example. Okay. 4B relates actually to state legislation. It is specific to bus drivers to allow them, retired bus drivers, to work beyond the 140 days. And in regards to the tech policy, One of the things Mrs. Moyers wanted to accomplish before she left her position, and she's been involved, really with the development of that policy in conjunction with myself and Mr. Sines, we basically sat down and went through the tech policy. In many instances, we were removing things that were repetitive in nature that were actually really, there was an entire sheet that I don't know why that was included. It was almost literally a repeat of verbiage that was in the policy. We did, really the only significant add I would see there dealt with one section as it relates to artificial intelligence. That was an add on the tail end of it.
Have to be.
And then just cleaning up a lot of the verbiage of the policy. But that was why that policy was looked at, is that was just really a goal of Mrs. Moyers before she left, was to really get that policy in good shape before her departure. So I'll look into the other matters and certainly follow up with you, Mr.
Give me a call and I'll come see you.
Sure, okay.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Huggins.
Yes, sir. Moving on, at this time, entertain a motion to approve the board's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Ms. Feathers. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Do we have someone who can change the camera with the speaker? There we go.
Voting is open. Mr. Kisner, if you need, okay, he's able to do it from where he's at. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the meeting minutes from 6/12/23.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any corrections? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda is superintendent's update.
Okay, board members, in your packets, if I can, my packet's a mess. Okay. A few things to review from a maintenance standpoint. Again, last time we updated you, the vendor RM Huffman has provided quoting for bleacher replacements for the PHS gym. We are currently seeking other bidders, but also looking to see if the pricing provided falls under any pre-bid cooperatives that could be potentially utilized to fulfill some of the pre-bid requirements that may be needed for a project of that scope. The anticipated timeline for this work would be next spring. It is an item that is included on our strategic plan in terms of our comprehensive educational facilities plan work. I contacted Veritas Representative Scott Willis today. He indicated that workers should be on site and working on erecting the front storefront by mid-July. I know, Mr. Seymour, you would send some correspondence to Mr. Murray as well. Veritas's intent is to complete the project in advance of school. They are concerned with some of the supply chain delays they're seeing. Specifically, really though, they feel like they've got a lot of the balls rolling that are necessary, so they should be able to hit the ground running once they have everything on site. So I tried to get him to commit. I said, he said by mid-July they should definitely be on site with, beginning work on the project. It's going to be tight, but they feel like that they can get close to accomplishing what's necessary there. I tend to think we're going to have to deal with some situations early on, but I'm very hopeful. We're going to continue to work in conjunction with Veritas and with Thrasher to try to push along this project to get that accomplished as quickly as possible, but done well, not just quickly. Work orders have been created for installation of cameras at Brewston West and South with Electronic Specialties. I contacted Matt Hamilton with Electronic Specialties today. He indicated they anticipate beginning the installations at Brewston within the next 2 weeks. They are finishing up a major project at West Virginia Wesleyan. When they finish there, they said Brewston would be their next stop, and then from there, they would be heading to West. Mr. Murray is also seeking a vendor to assess repair work at Fellowsville. He's anticipating to be able to get some accomplished on that when most of the maintenance staff returns next week, following the July 1, when their new contract year. In addition, he plans to have M&N pressure washing. He's working with them to do the exterior cleaning at Aurora. We'll likely have to get that purchase order cut after July 1 on the new fiscal year. We want to start with the Aurora block to assess their work, and if it looks good, we would like to move that to other projects as per something that was discussed with you earlier this year, Mr. Tatham.
Can we get some before and after photos?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'd like to see myself. I just want to see one building, see the difference, and then then we can target some of the additional buildings that need to be completed. Board of Risk reports have been received by Mr. Murray, and once Mr. Schmidl will begin on Monday of next week, we'll look to sit down and look to get a process to resolve any of the identified issues. Maintenance database is included for the board's review. Did want to update, and again, I appreciate Mrs. Peasley bringing that up. We had a team of 30-plus teachers, principals, central office directors, and board members. Certainly appreciate Mr. Tatham and Mr. Kisner accompanied us to the Model Schools Conference in Orlando, Florida. We had a team that attended a series of one-hour sessions on a wide variety of topics. The group also had a daily debrief session to discuss some of the sessions they felt could be beneficial and possibly initiatives that could be used here to improve things here in Preston County. We also did 2 presentations, myself, Mrs. McDonald, Mrs. Layton, Mr. Hogue, Mrs. Barno, Mrs. Herco, Mrs. Liga, Mrs. Murray, and Mrs. Titchener presented. I would say for each presentation we had, I would say likely around 75 to 80 people in the audience. In your packets, board members, I actually gave you, this was the first feedback sheet we've gotten from the sessions. We had 18 total responses with all in agreement that the content was relevant and helpful, that the speakers engaged the audience. Got some good comments there, so just wanted to share. That was some of the initial feedback from the presentation sections. Had a group picture. I apologize, our copier looked like it was running a little low on the color ink. It started to pink out on me, so it looks like it's a beautiful sunset inside the hotel room. Okay. I also wanted to, as we go through the agenda, but certainly really appreciate the board giving this group, myself and others, an opportunity to attend the Model Schools Conference. I have personally never attended the conference, found it to be very beneficial, and board members, we will be having an organizational meeting to have a presentation for you, for members of that team, to present to the board as to some of the top things that we were able to things that we can potentially bring back and prioritize to help benefit the district here. Summer school and credit recovery is going well. Just wanted to provide you with the listing of summer reading programs. The schedule of presenters for the remainder of summer school, you can see, kind of takes you through mid to late July. Did want to note in your packets, board members, we had 4 individuals represent the county going to West Virginia Mountaineer Boys State, including former student board member Colin Savage and his brother attended, also Aiden Hart and Alex Burns. And I didn't mean to leave the ladies out, I just didn't have a picture, but I believe we also sent a contingent for female students to Girls State as well. Mr. Seymour, I'm going to try to reach out, and I know it's tough in the summer because kids with vacations and stuff, try to see if we can set up and get a recognition of those kids, because I'm really glad to see that the school is sending, during COVID, that just kind of shut down, and we were really seeing low numbers of kids participate with that. Preston sent a very, I thought a very solid team to both events, so much appreciated. Mr. Huggins and I will be attending the new board members training at Stonewall July 10th. That is the same day as our meeting. In looking at the agenda, Mr. Huggins, I think we're wrapping that up by 2:30. I mean, I can easily drive from Stonewall and probably be here in 45 minutes or so, so we'll be good.
He doesn't like how I drive.
We can get up here really quick if we have to, though, I'm sure. Board members, the self-appraisals, don't identify if you've done it yet because it is supposed to be confidential, but I will say I've received 2 of the 5. They come in as confidential. I have no idea who's completed that process, but just as a reminder, that's due by August 15th, so we want to get those submitted as soon as possible. Mrs. Varner met with all the newly hired employees, or several of the newly hired employees today to orient them and getting their needed paperwork completed. Additional sessions will be scheduled prior to the start of school. And that was one thing that several of our group members attended a session at Model Schools where they looked at the orientation process and kind of the ongoing professional development for those new or beginning teachers. That's something certainly that we looked at, that's something that's a possibility that we can look to try to embed within Preston County as well. Our next scheduled meeting, pending approval of our 23-24 board meeting schedule, will be June 10th. Mr. Huggins, that's all I have at this time. Or, I'm sorry, July 10th. I said June, and I meant to say July. I apologize. Okay, any questions?
No, one other thing, just a reminder, we had to change our emails, that thing. Mm-hmm. Just if you haven't done that, make sure you do that. What's it called? You sent the email out to us. It's like a certification thing.
Oh, yes.
If you haven't done that, you need to do that.
I think you guys are going to be involved to do that as well. In order to sign on to your K-12, we received an advisement from the State Department that indicated that central office officials, administrative, and they didn't,
You did.
I think it's going to entail board members that you'll basically have to set up your account so that you're going to be able to authenticate if you log into your K-12 outside of the school network, it'll require like a 2-form authentication. I do mine on my cell phone. It just sends me a text or calls when you try to log in when you're off site. If it require, I think it'll actually prompt you if you're, so it did prompt you guys to do that.
It did not me.
It didn't?
It knows I don't like technology.
Now, I will say the intent, the State Department indicated that all employees will fall into that by October. I have not sent that out to all employee classifications yet, because if I send it out in June, it's going to be seen now, forgotten later. Obviously, with our superintendent's updates, it will start coming out in August. I'll notify employees, and we'll work with them. It's not a terribly difficult process. It's just, that's definitely happening with employee accounts. They're saying that student accounts will not be impacted this year, because I'm not even sure how we would do that with the young kids logging on and so forth. I just think that would be difficult, but we'll see.
If I can do it, they can.
That's right, Mr.
Because
Evans.
I went on and did mine. Did you do yours? Mm-hmm. You have it. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Huggins, that's all I have at this time.
Okay, just real quick thing. Thank you for representing us, and also to the board members. It was kind of neat looking on Facebook, seeing postings on our Preston County website of various activities. So we do thank you, and also the Boys State and Girls State. Congratulate to those young men and women for representing us well. Next on the agenda, and my computer just died, is the pre-K enrollment selection process. Mr. Martin.
Okay. Board members' concerns have recently been brought up in regards to the process involved in placement of incoming preschool students within identified schools of choice. During the June 12th board meeting, the board was supplied with the MOU, the Preston County Schools, that was established between Preston County Schools and North Central Community Action that was approved during the August 8th, 2022 board meeting. The board also previously received copies of selection rubrics for Preston County and other neighboring counties. In Mrs. Miller's research, there was only one county identified, Randolph, that used school attendance area as part of their selection process. Now, it was noted too about the request for a pre-K position at Kingwood Elementary. Of course, you all saw the delegation group here tonight requesting that based upon the total number of students and the total number of students with IEP considerations. The one thing they mentioned as well is because the centralized location, in addition to Kingwood, could potentially be a catchment program for other students around the county that aren't able to get placements that are of their first selection. During the June 12th meeting, after hearing from two parents, and I believe Mrs. Nestor and her husband spoke last time, there was a desiring the addition of a preschool program in South Preston. There was also extensive debate between the board members. A request was made by the board for me to seek legal guidance on the matter with our attorney, Kim Croyle, with Bowles Rice. Mrs. Croyle's response was provided to the board and placed on the agenda for y'all's review. Mr. Huggins, if you want me to read any sections of this, or if there, there's a few pertinent sections I thought would be appropriate to read, but a few things, just taking excerpts from Mrs. Croyle. She indicated, as required by Policy 2525, the enrollment application establishes a transparent point system based upon established need to determine placement. Please note that the enrollment and placement in the pre-K collaborative program is placement in the program, not placement in a particular school or at a specific site. Likewise, where the MOU and Policy 2525 reference the school district in which the student lives, they are referencing the district, Preston, i.e. Preston County Schools, not specific attendance zones within the school district. In looking at that, I'm sure that part of that reasoning is that Head Start establishes MOUs with several districts around North Central West Virginia. So in Mrs. Croyle's opinion, again, that verbiage was not necessarily specifying a specific area of the county, for example, i.e. our attendance zones, but rather living within Preston, the entirety of the Preston County School District. One other section I highlighted that I thought was pertinent to the discussion is, should the Board of Education wish to change the criteria for enrollment to give weight to other factors to determine placement, those suggestions should be funneled through the collaborative team, which meets regularly throughout the year to continually assess the pre-K program. The collaborative team is tasked by Policy 2525 to make decisions regarding the countywide enrollment process. Should changes be suggested by the collaborative team to the enrollment and/or eligibility process, it should submit these changes for approval to the West Virginia Department of Education. The Department of Ed must review and approve the requested changes prior to the implementation. And then it indicates some of the other requirements of the county boards. Now, Mr. Huggins, there might be other sections you want to share, but I thought that was pertinent to some of the matters that were brought up last time.
Any comments from board members?
I do feel that we should include a change. I know it won't help us with this situation this year, but for living in an attendance area should be a consideration that is part of the rubrics, because if you're living in a certain area, then that should be a factor. So I would like that to be included.
Yeah,
so we can discuss that one first.
Mr. Tatum, one thing I can do is I can place on an agenda item for upcoming agenda for you all to have discussion and to potentially put together maybe a recommendation from the board that can be then, recommended to the core team the pre-K core team that's been designated.
Okay. And then so we'll start with the families that are currently living in an attendance area but not able to get into pre-K in that attendance area. Are they being bumped by a family that has requested to be at that school but does not live in that attendance area?
Are there situations where that has occurred?
So I think at South Preston, there is a family that is living in the South Preston school attendance area.
Yes.
But they're not able to place their student in South Preston school because there's not a position available. Someone else has already been accepted in that position. Were the people that are already accepted into that position, are they from outside of that attendance area?
There were some that were in I believe the Fellows,ville area, and there might have been one that's technically in the Kingwood zone. It was right on that board. I mean, even as Mrs. Nestor alluded to,
I understand.
Some of those are very close to some of those boundary areas.
So has anyone reached out to, say, the family that lives in the Fellows,ville area? Are they wanting to go to South Preston simply because their other kids are already the same situation? Their other kids in their family are already going to South Preston, and that's why they want to?
I can say, what we can do is to reach out and maybe to determine the reasoning as to why they're looking at a specific school set. I would tend to think at that area, it's very much in line with what Mrs. Nestor identified. When we've looked at those metrics before, I remember at one point when we were doing some work with, and I don't remember what exactly it involved, but where we were taking statements from, for example, where we had Fellows,ville area students who were attending South Preston, and we kind of polled why was that the case. Now, some instances might be maybe, as Mrs. Nestor alluded to, at the point of time when she was looking to get her kids into a pre-K program, there wasn't an available program. But many alluded, just in pulling that data, and I may still have some of that data, but I remember, one of the most common was, again, they wanted their kids consistently in one building. That was a really common response to that.
But the Kingwood one lives on the border?
Yeah,
Is that,
out in the Houseville area.
At the Houseville. And then the second part or request I would have is, and I spoke to Mr. Martin on the phone earlier, what would it take to recruit more students for South Preston for pre-K? Because currently I think we only have 20 that are enrolled there.
No, we have 28.
28, okay, so 28. But I'm assuming, going to be more than 28 kids in kindergarten the following year. So how many potential students could there be in pre-K? And can we market, solicit, call, encourage remaining students, additional students to enroll in pre-K so we can reach the threshold to get an additional class to have a total of 2 classes at South Preston and still have 1 class at Fellowsville, so that we're not hurting anybody, but I think we'll benefit as a whole as a county the more students that we get into pre-K.
Yeah, I spoke with Mrs. Miller, and I know, for example, they've done, Head Start does some things. They put out like the road signs seeking additional preschool students. They said they have supplied materials to some of the local medical practitioners, but we can certainly reach out and try to widen that net as much as possible. Because our discussion was, for example, medical practitioners kind of know kids of that age level that might be looking for potential slots to make sure that they have the pertinent material, so that if they would want to pass that along, to refer kids to pre-K, to try to increase those enrollments as much as possible. Because I agree, if we ultimately could get sufficient number of students at South Preston to warrant the hiring of an additional teacher and aide, that would be highly beneficial, because then students in that area can be serviced in the areas where they want to be.
Do we know roughly how many students are in the kindergarten class currently and how many's in first grade? Like, what's the pool of student potentially that could be in pre-K? Does anyone know?
There's 2 first grades.
And there's 20 in each class?
And there's 2 kindergarten.
And how many?
First grade this year, though, had
Just
one classroom.
But they will have to have 2 next
Right.
year.
So do you see what I'm getting at? Like, do we have a ballpark? Like, what do we think the number could be? If we got 100% attendance in pre-K, 100% enrollment, what could the number max be?
It varies, but we can certainly try to, we can go out there and try to find as many kids, obviously, as we can. I think, we can certainly task those schools to try to ultimately look to see if we can increase that enrollment, because as you said, increased enrollment is ultimately beneficial. We want kids in school. The early intervention is certainly helpful to them in their long-term development.
And so one more question, I'm going to follow back up. So if there's currently 28 that's interested in South Preston, are those 8 included in the 12 that are currently enrolled in Fellowsville, or are those 8 just not on our current list that was provided 2 weeks ago?
The last time I looked at the list, 2 of the students, I believe, were I don't think the information we got, I'm not certain that was accurate, because I believe there are 2 kids from the Tunnelton area who are going to be going to Kingwood, and maybe they didn't have those numbers yet. But of those 8, I believe there were 2 that are going to be going to the Kingwood area because of special needs considerations. Of course, one situation is the child lives in the Fellowsville zone but is seeking placement at South Preston. I believe one is that potentially the parent may be able to, I don't want to go into too much detail, but the parent, because of where they work in another school.
I just want general ideas. If there's 28 that are interested in South Preston and we've only placed 20, those other 8, just kind of give me ballpark. Is that making up, is that the part of the 59 that's at Kingwood that's pushing us up against that threshold that we have to add another teacher there?
I feel like really when you're saying 8, I don't really have 8 that need a slot at Tunnelton right now. I have 4 that live in the Tunnelton zone. Now, of course, I understand Mrs. Nestor does not live in the Tunnelton area, but is desiring placement at South Preston. So I would say we're probably looking at 4 who are in the South Preston attendance zone, plus one who has the ability because of where they work. So 6, really.
6 would like to be at South Preston. Yes. Okay. But if they're not currently, if we take those 6 and put them at South Preston, is that pulling it from Kingwood, reducing the numbers there?
No.
It's just 6 that aren't on the list.
Those are 6 that currently aren't.
They're not enrolled
likely
anywhere.
Going to enroll anywhere.
They're not enrolled anywhere.
That would be a choice of the parent.
But do you understand what I'm trying to get? I'm trying to figure out, like, are they already accounted for, or are they just not on the list at all? But is she already counted in West number?
I didn't want to divulge that, Ms. But
is she already in West number?
That's one of the 8.
Okay. But she's in West number currently?
Yes.
Yeah, Jacob's probably in the Fellowsville number.
In the Fellowsville number, which is 12 currently? Okay.
That's where I was coming up, and 2 are going to Kingwood. So in essence, I've got 4 that don't have anywhere to go. They're saying they don't have a good means of going anywhere else.
Yeah. Sorry, I know it's not discussion, but can I ask a question? Why are the 2 going to Kingwood?
In regards to, I'm not certain of the reasoning why they're going to Kingwood.
I think she's asking, are they being...
Were they bumped?
Are they being forced to go to Kingwood, or are they going to Kingwood on their own choice?
They didn't have a placement, but they are going to Kingwood because of the circumstances.
But would they rather go to South Preston?
Probably, yes.
And would that reduce our overcapacity at Kingwood?
Not the special ed part.
Well, it would, no, I think it would.
It would.
Possibly the 2, that would still keep them at 17, that's still a high total.
It would take them a day.
Yeah, but that's important information because we're considering adding a whole nother position solely because we're.
Gotta put what at 17?
I think they expressed, the 19, I don't know the 19 they have on the list, I don't have that list in front of me, but perspective, I was under
They're
the
saying that
impression,
Kingwood-
I was under the impression there were 2 from potentially from the Tunnelton attendants. Again, I think that they were going to service the kids at Kingwood unless they were to get a program added at South.
Well, they presented that there were 19.
Wanting, but they could only have
They can only
16
do
currently.
16, right.
So,
So even if those 2.
Even if I took the 2 off at 17, that's what I'm
one.
saying.
but according to the criteria, the ratios that we were given the previous meeting, if they added a third aide, then they can have up to 10 people in a room. So technically, you could have 18 at Kingwood with your 3 existing
The
classrooms.
The reason is only 2 of the teachers at Kingwood are
Only 2.
certified
Right.
to teach special ed, and the other one's not.
I know, I understand that, but I'm saying if you look at the ratio sheet, it says you can have 8 IEPs in a classroom if you only have 2 in that classroom. I'm assuming that both of your people in that classroom,
So
like you have a
add-
teacher and you have an aide.
Add another aide and it could
If
go
you add
to 10.
another aide, you can go up to 10. So I'm saying we don't have to have a certified special ed teacher if we just add another aide to one of those rooms. I'm assuming an aide is cheaper and easier to find, then we would be within legal thresholds at Kingwood
Understood.
without adding the class.
Mine-
And then we can move those 2 to South there and then maybe service more students. I'm not saying it's all going to work out perfect,
Yeah.
but it's not a justification to add a class at Kingwood because we bumped 2 from South when they don't want to be at Kingwood.
Well, and Mr. Tatham, honestly, of that total number of 19, I don't know if that's inclusive. I mean, that's what that group is quoting me, unless they handed me a sheet and I cross-reference, I'm not certain of that.
Okay, but do you see where I'm getting
I
at?
do,
Like,
I
I
do.
feel like we need to kind of look at those numbers and those situations and start with a preference, even if we have a schematic of where do the parents want to be. Because as I've said to you, I feel like we need to service parents and 4-year-olds and put them where it meets their family's needs so they have a healthy year. Because I think the whole purpose of Head Start is transitioning that student into the school system so that they're going to be in the school system that they're going to be in for kindergarten so we can start making those relationships. That's what all I heard about at Model Schools Conference was relationships. And so that's where I stand
Are
with
there
it.
any other numbers in Kingwood's enrollment from other areas? Like are there any
Roseburg.
from?
Roseburg doesn't have a preschool program, so they send kids there.
But there's no other areas, like we're not pulling any
Like
from.
West or?
I'd have to pull the inter-county list to see, but generally, it's predominantly, we'll sometimes get some kids on that fringe out in Howesville that want to kind of, go either way, because the busing kind of zigzags out there, in Roseburg. We don't see typically a lot of crossover to Kingwood otherwise. Those are really the 2 big areas.
It's not, this may not be allowed, so tell me if I'm not, but why does Kingwood have so many IEPs percentage-wise in comparison to other areas?
Because they were identified as special needs. I mean,
I'm just wondering. I was just wondering. I mean, if I was looking
specific,
back at
I
the
really don't know
ratios.
all the individual circumstances there. I think that was brought up last time. I mean, I just don't know the specifics as to why that would be the case.
Well, okay, but I mean, we know 2 of those may be from South Preston, so that'd be one reason why the IEPs are a higher number. Okay, this is a discussion piece anyways, so,
Right,
right, there's nothing we can do with it.
Okay.
right. It is
Specifically.
discussion.
I mean, was there anything else that, I mean, I guess board members, I felt like Mrs. Croyle did a pretty good job though of summarizing where, what direction we could take. Do you have any other questions that we need?
My only,
Any legal guidance?
My only question would be, when is the review? I know it's due this year, the 23-24 year, or school year. Do we know what time of the year that, like, we don't want to miss it?
In terms of making any changes? I think in her letter, they recommend it just needs to be done 30 days in advance of when it's going to be implemented. So that would need to happen pretty soon if you were going to impact for the coming year.
No, well, I wouldn't think it would impact this year.
Right.
No, it wouldn't impact this school
It
year.
couldn't be
'cause
this school year for the.
We're already
Right,
in
the review, yeah, we're eligible in the 23-24 school year to review for next year, 24-25.
Well, the other thing I would say is we need to get an MOU on file prior to the start of school. I mean, last year that was filed in August. That's been our typical timelines.
But
So
that
that's
didn't-
something we need to be actively working on right now.
I mean, we had that discussion at the last meeting, but last year's MOU that we signed in August of 2022 is guiding this
Right now,
selection
it's audit-
process. It's
exactly.
guiding the selection process.
Yes.
So I feel like before we signed the MOU in 2023, which will decide next year's selection process, we should determine the criteria.
Sure.
In that
You're gonna
MOU.
get input from
You
the
can't
legal.
determine it. You can
Yeah.
provide input.
We can give input, but we don't have to, I don't have to vote to approve an MOU if I don't agree with the
If we don't have an
criteria.
MOU, we will not be able to offer pre-K
And
service.
you'll
Yeah,
be, and you'll
but I'm
be
saying-
illegal.
Well, I'm just simply saying, so I think I'm answering Pam's question, like, when do we need to make this recommendation? It needs to be done before we sign an MOU.
Correct.
Yeah, but we just have to make sure, because we don't have a choice but to do pre-K.
I mean, if you want
I'm not disagreeing with that, I agree with you. I'm saying we need to figure out what's important to us for
if
placement
it's the board's,
criteria.
if it's the board's desire though to make a recommendation, I can certainly place that as a
Yeah, my
voting
recommendation
matter.
is that we give some weight and preference to school attendance area because we're talking about 4-year-olds and I don't want them busing all over the county.
And that would be on next agenda.
Yes, I can do that.
Because that's your.
I'll put that as a voting
It's a
item.
For that to come on next agenda to vote.
Okay.
Because as you said, this is just discussion.
Because then that recommendation can be passed on to the core team before they bring forth an MOU for your all's approval.
So we're still working, is what it boils down to. Okay. Good discussion,
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
and moving on. Service personnel, so I don't mess up another one. At this time, entertain the motion for the board to approve the service personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open.
Is Mr. Kisner still with us?
Mr. Kisner, you still on? He's always delayed. I think he's
He's muted.
We'll see if he votes, that'll tell.
he's voted, so he's voting.
Muted so we can't hear his kids.
He doesn't want us to tell him he can't ask any more questions.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the professional agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any discussion?
I would like to pull the preschool position at Kingwood Elementary School and table that portion.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
I move that we remove the request for a new position at Kingwood Elementary School for pre-K.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Mr. Kisner. Any discussion? Only thing I'd add, Mr. Martin, once you find out those, that may need added back on the next agenda.
Okay.
So in case that would have numbers to help us.
Yeah, we don't, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. My only thing, the numbers look like we're gonna need one there anyway. Because are the first two already full non-IEP? Well, yeah,
I think it's highly likely we'll need one there, but again, if you all want to look at the specific breakouts, I can provide that on the 10th. We have a short turnaround on this meeting, so I can do what all you need me to do.
Okay, this would be, we have to vote first on the pooling of the Kingwood Elementary position. That'll be a voice vote.
Correct.
Mr. Tatham.
Yes.
yes.
Mr. Kisner? Mr. Kisner?
Mr. Kesner, they're voting on to pull the pre-K position at Kingwood Elementary from the professional agenda.
Yeah, abstain.
Can you repeat, please?
Abstain.
He's abstaining.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
we will,
Motion, that passes on a 3-0 with one abstention.
Maybe he couldn't hear that whole
yeah.
conversation.
Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to approve the professional meeting has been moved and seconded. So now it's any discussion. Call for the vote. This one's on the computer.
Voting is open. Motion passes 3-0 with one abstention.
Can I,
Can you?
I think it would be helpful if we had a list, we don't need names, we had a list of how many applied from their zone and how many are placed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, for each
I should be able to pull
site,
that.
Or,
and how many have been moved.
yeah, I think too, another way of looking at it would be if we could have a list of how many applied at a particular spot or requested a particular spot. You know what I'm saying? If that's,
We need to know how many are where and whether it's by choice or whether they were forced. However you can provide that information.
Okay.
Not forced, that's kind of like,
well,
how many moved.
I think that's,
Well, and again, what we've done so far.
But I would say this, the legal advisement
Is-
indicates they're in a program, not a location.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing we do have to make sure in the long run is we do have to follow legally.
Right, but
We
that
will.
would also be helpful in the
Right.
discussion for the, like, reviewing it.
Yep,
For
absolutely.
the MOU.
And I agree with the mentality is, we want to get as many kids and
Yeah.
families where they want to be as possible.
that's what I'm going at.
I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, next, okay, we got to vote for the professional meeting.
There's no professional meetings, Mr. Huggins.
Oh, that's right, never mind. We did the professional personnel.
Okay.
Okay, next, Ms. Feathers, the pledge with retail vendors.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there so you can take it off the agenda. So, in having a conversation with one of our local, manager of one of the vape shops, and I'll just leave it at that. We were in a little discussion, all the faith in the world that they card and, people that they think, actually, this particular one said that when she sees two people come in and she's a little bit iffy about it, she'll card both of them, thinking one, and I really appreciate that. But, so in our conversation, thought might be a good idea if maybe somehow we could partner or like have these area vendors pledge to get on board with us to help cut down on the amount of vapes that are sold to younger students. Not saying that they're not carding them, I'm not saying that. It might even be a deterrent. Like, I don't even know what it would look like. I don't think it would be the board that would actually come up with it. Maybe one of the clubs from the high school, maybe the student government could be involved. But, like, the employees would have a button that says, we pledge with Preston County Schools to fight underage use or whatever. Or maybe they would agree to put a sign on the door. If it's a deterrent for them to say, ugh, we're not going to go here, they're doing extra checking. You know what I mean? Like, whatever the deterrent may be. Might not help at all. But I wish Mr. Seymour was still here because I think it should be something that is student-driven as well. So that's my idea. And we can take it off the agenda. We can ask, maybe you can pass it along to the administration at the high school. And while I'm talking about student involvement, we didn't have an election for our new student board members, and I'm not really.
Well, I'll say that we'll get the application out.
Okay.
Very early in the instruction year. I can ask, I mean, we could go as far as, I could get the application posted online and. they
It's
put-
on our website, but.
Well, I said we could put a call out to parents, go ahead and have get emailed applications. And then once we start back, we could convene that committee really quickly. I mean,
So yeah, just a suggestion.
so that we
like-
get, so I understand, so we get those kids
Yeah.
earlier than they were last year.
But, just like the SAD program, Students Against Drunk Drivers or whatever, just to get the students involved. And it really sounded like our local vendors would, well, at least the one I talked to, would be more than happy to partner with us.
Well, Mrs. Feathers,
And-
I think we still have a Raise Club at Preston High School, and I think that would be very much in line with the goals of that
Okay.
group. So I can certainly reach out to the club sponsors there to see, and we may be able to seek out maybe some grant, or there may be some funding sources for, like, some of the signage and things you've discussed. I think it sounds like a great idea, personally.
I don't think it has to be anything that we need to approve, but I would love to see, once it was up and going, for them to give us a presentation, what they come up with or whatever. But
Okay.
now you can take it off.
Maybe just temporarily till we put it back on for,
Yeah.
to report out.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Feathers. Actually, I think it is a good idea. And I think a lot of our local people are really trying hard
Yeah.
to prevent it. Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the proposed contract between Preston County Schools and Kevin Duckworth for surrogate parent services for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question slash
Sure.
discussion. Can it be included, maybe not for this one since it's already been signed, but that there's a fiduciary relationship between Mr. Duckworth and the said student? And nowhere does it say in here what responsibility Mr. Duckworth has to the actual student that they're parenting.
So you just would want a higher level of detail added within, like, what his contractual duties would be?
Or what his responsibility is to the student that he's the surrogate parent of.
Sure. Let's put that down.
I think fiduciary would be a high enough, the highest standard, which it should be. If this person's making decisions on that student's behalf, he should have that student's best interest at heart.
And one thing, of course, knowing and having used these in the past when I was teaching, they do.
Yeah.
The people, they honestly do.
I'm sure it's
This-
implied.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
and this guy in particular, but, when I was teaching, there were times when I was in special ed, they had that. And those people definitely had the kids at heart. But I understand your comment, especially if you don't know what they do.
Yep.
Okay, any others? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote.
Well, maybe. Sorry, Ms. Huggins, there's something going on there.
I'm glad it's yours, not mine.
I'm gonna just have to redo it. There was Mr. Tatham, seconded by Mrs. Feathers.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Okay. Okay, voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the proposed bid between Preston County Schools and West Virginia Harvest for the 2023-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Ms. Feathers. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the proposed MOU between Preston County Schools and West Virginia Department of Education Office of Child Nutrition.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda is the proposed Board of Education meetings for 23-24 school year. At this time, I entertain a motion for the board to approve the meeting dates for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Ms. Feathers. Any discussion or questions?
Mr. Huggins, one thing I would indicate is I just tried to follow basically the template that we've utilized this year. I think pretty much that the LSIC schedule falls in line with roughly when we were meeting this past year. I've also incorporated, the 10 a.m. meetings versus I think a total of 4 10 a.m. meetings. There's one that's at 9 o'clock that's just like so it very much mirrors this year's schedule. I didn't get a feel that there was a desire for a significant change. If there is, if the board desires any change, we can do that, but I kind of put this forth in line with what we had done this year.
And we've had to adjust from the past, and we can still do. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Okay, voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve Preston County Schools Policy R8-39-9, retired teachers as substitutes in areas of critical need on second read for formal adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any questions or comments?
Just a question of clarification. Was any of Mr. McCrum's questions pertinent to this?
He was just asking if we could add additional, certification areas, for example. Like right now, this specifies special education, it specifies math. If we identify, let's say, for example, that we place a retiree in a position at the start of the year, in the hopes that we're ultimately going to be able to fill it before that individual. Like they'll tell us, I don't really want to work this thing all year. I'll start the year off for you. And let's say that we can't find a replacement easily and they stay in the position. We would ultimately probably come back to the board to ensure that if this individual is going to stay in that position, that we get that approved so that that particular category is also approved so it helps them from a retirement standpoint. So that's why I think Mrs. Varner indicated last time we could make modifications to that as the need arises. What we've identified right now have been likely difficult fills for us in the past.
Okay, thank you.
And what happens for retirees, you can only work 140 days. If you work 141, it affects your retirement.
Correct.
So that's why when they do the retired teachers, and he was right with, and I don't know what Mr. Zigrade's exactly was, but it allowed him to work the entire school year, get paid the full salary, just like a regular teacher. But if you work 141 retired, then it affects your retirement.
Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve Preston County Schools Policy R8-39-9-A, employment of retired bus operators as substitutes in the areas of critical need and shortage on the second read for formal adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Recommend the board approve Preston County Schools Policies 3-32, R3-32-1 through 3-32-10 and 3-32-1 on the first reading for final formal approval on 7/10.
How can you have two R3-32-1s? You have one for digital citizenship and you have one for internet safety policy.
Make sure it's not typographical.
One's digital citizenship and then the other.
Which one is it, Mr. Chapin?
Should it be a -11?
It's R-32-1, it's there twice, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
And the first one is under digital citizenship, and then down here,
Digital citizenship is R-3-32-1.
so it's -3.
And you're saying there's a duplicate of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all the way at the bottom, there's internet safety policy. R-.
That's as it exists in the current document. I can change the numbering. It could have been that it should have been 11 and didn't come across as such. If we want to make a modification to that, I can do as such.
So we need an entertain a motion.
It's in the Word document too. It's the same way.
Right.
So we can make a motion to approve.
We should have updated the number. I mean, this was as the policy was written, I believe, or probably when Dr. Rozier had written the policy. It's just the numbering was off. I'm sure the intent was for it to be 32-11.
Okay, do we make a motion with this and allow you to do the correction for next time, or do we?
I mean, I would say this, that could be considered a cosmetic change to the policy. It doesn't require any, I'm not making any change to the content of it, just the numbering system of it. So if that's the board's will, I can, when it comes to at the second read, I can make that adjustment so that it kind of reads accordingly if that's desired.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did we get a motion for the technology?
Yeah, Mr. Kisner, yes, there was a motion. Mr. Kisner, or Mr. Tatham had brought forth that there was a duplication of, well, now I'll tell you what though, guys, wait a second. The difference is the one is R3-21-1. The other one is just 3-32-1.
Not the
Am I
way that it's
correct?
printed on here.
See, R3-32.
Oh, when I did internet safety policy, that's literally a typo on my part. When you look at the actual policy document, that's just 3-32-1. There shouldn't have been R before that. So that very last one should just read R-32-1. Strike the R.
Okay. I see what you're saying now.
Yeah. When I actually am looking at the doc, I apologize because I had to hand type that and I left the R on there.
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
We got a motion
Kisner.
and a second, or we're still looking for a second?
Well, right now
We had a second, didn't we? That's why
we
we're
had a
discussing.
motion by who, you, Ms. Feathers, and second by Mr. Tatham.
I don't remember.
I think it was a motion by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham.
Yeah, so we do have a motion and a second, Mr. Kisner.
Okay, I have a comment during discussion.
Sure.
Part of this policy change allows for the use of AI as a source to our students. I really think we should reconsider that. There are a lot of issues, and again, in the foundation of education, I just don't think that it is a reliable or scholarly source at this point in time that we should encourage in a policy to allow to be cited.
I'm not sure so much it was encouragement, just trying to clarify its usage, but.
Well, and I agree with you, like, we're not saying, hey, please use this, but we are putting in policy the allowance of use for it.
But some of your future classes here may have that in their CSOs. So I think right now, and I understand your point, Mr. Kisner, I think the part that they're trying to do is to allow for the future as well. Am I wrong, Mr. Martin?
That was the intent. I mean, that actually was specifically added by Mr. Sines, which, I mean, quite frankly, in regards to tech literacy and knowledge of current trends, I wouldn't ask anybody but Mr. Sines, but.
Right.
I just feel like the allowance of use is probably early for what these AI programs are currently.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
This is first reading, right?
Correct.
Just a clarification, when we get to second reading, are we still allowed to make changes to it or suggest changes, or is it locked in stone and we only have to provide it for people to read it?
I think we would just have to go back to a first read, said if we made any substantial changes to it.
Okay.
Which is okay. I mean, we can do that if necessary.
I don't think I've ever been on.
It just
This
depends
is new
upon,
for me,
it
too.
depends on if it's cosmetic versus a significant change to the policy.
Okay.
Because to be honest, we haven't done a lot of policy updates. So this is kind of new for me too.
I mean, I agree with Mr. Kisner. We need to consider AI, and it's going to really jump off the page, I think, literally in the next year or two. It's just now getting started.
The only part I'm looking at, again, I'm looking at with the classrooms and making sure that our kids, if it's something that's going to apply for them in the future, again, I think maybe that it can be looked at. I don't know exactly what it says. We maybe need to look at it, but this is first reading. So it is something that gives us time to study it a little bit more. And if we need to change from the second reading, we can, to go back to the first
I'm
one.
comfortable with that.
Okay, anything else? Call for the vote.
There we go. Voting is open. Motion passes 3-1. Board members, what I will say is, I'll try to reach out to see with Dr., even though he's not, I may reach out to, our previous Dr. Rozier to see if, if he's heard of any, policy in line with new AI, and can reach out to some other districts to see if they've incorporated anything yet on that front. But I do think it's a matter that is definitely emerging pretty rapidly.
Yep. Can we also add to that, maybe get some insight from some curriculum or, like, say, English teachers' perspective on it? Because, I mean, it says it's being used as a brainstorming idea and understanding complex text and improving grammar and syntax.
Sure.
So I'd just like to hear what teachers think.
Sure.
Mr. Morton, can I ask who voted against because we've lost our signal?
It was a 3-0 vote. Oh, shoot. Mr. Kisner.
What's 3-0?
I take that back on, guys.
Sorry. I'm not looking up there. I'm having a hard enough time keeping up.
Can I keep talking while you're doing that, Mr. Martin? I didn't go to this particular session, but there was a session at Model Schools where AI was being presented to teachers and administrators for lesson planning. So maybe we may also want to invite in one of the individuals that went to that session, because I know some of the people that went to it were impressed by it. And I believe Mrs. Katie McDonald went to the session and said that there was definitely could be potential benefit when an administrator is bombarded with a lot of questions from parents and emails about particular topics, that AI could be used of, hey, write me a email response to a parent for this. And it definitely generates a rough draft for it. So maybe getting their insights from the Model Schools Conference could be helpful too.
You said Mrs. McDonald. I believe Mr. Mott might have attended that one of those.
I just know Mrs. McDonald had talked to me about the session.
And that's a good, by somebody going to, because the only thing I know about is what I've seen on TV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which isn't all good, to be honest.
It's how everyone's doing it like the past month.
I know. Okay, moving on. Ongoing literacy discussion. It's on everyone. Is there anything you need to add?
No,
at this point?
just indicated, we had a group go to literacy and numeracy from Central Preston this week. In Charleston, Mrs. Hayes, who's actually our new testing and communications specialist was actually a presenter at the Literacy and Numeracy, and she'll also be presenting in Morgantown. We have, I believe, 8 other teams will be attending these sessions in Morgantown later in July. And just noted, too, that we had that large contingent attend model schools with many attending sessions related to literacy. And so just our continued efforts as they relate to literacy.
Okay. Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve the schedule of checks.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda is the budget journal entries. Entertain a motion for the board to approve the budget journal entries 217 to 235 related to the end of the year adjustments across all funds of action. I'm sorry, all funds.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open.
Funny thing is, nobody would have noticed.
It's like, I went right back over. That wasn't your fault, that was simply mine.
Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda, entertain a motion for the board to approve budget journal entry 174.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Ms. Feathers. Any discussion?
Is
It's Mr. Tatum.
I mean, Mr. Tatham, did I say?
Kisner.
Mr. Tatham.
You don't have to specify if it's not, but is this, it says local farm to schools grant?
Mm-hmm.
That's not like stuff grown at the high school, is it? Or is that just
No,
local vendors?
What I think this is, Mr. Tatham, is where it allows us to use a certain amount of funding to purchase from local vendors.
Any other questions? Hearing none, call for the vote. Told you I didn't feel good.
Oh, shoot, I thought that was open. Voting is now open. I apologize, guys. Motion passes 4-0.
Next on the agenda is the monthly financial report that is for information only.
Correct.
Moving on, maintenance work order system update. Again, it's an information only.
Mr. Huggins, one thing I've asked is, in going through with Mr. Murray at his end of year eval, is to definitely go in there and do some work on these older items in particular, that they either need to be indicated they're either cycled out, either they have been addressed, they're in process of being addressed, or they can't be addressed, and what other recourse. But I kind of broke out where, some that were within 30 days and some beyond 30 days. And just, I'd like for our end of year report to really reflect give us a good, accurate picture where we're at. So I'm hopeful, although we have a short turnaround on this meeting, it will either be the next meeting or the next one in July that we'll get a summary report for our maintenance work order and our tech work order system for the 23-24, for the 22-23 school year.
Okay. Looks good. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's performance evaluation, which will be in executive session.
I have it set up to vote that way too, Mr. Huggins.
Okay, so we at the time entertain a motion for the board to enter the executive session to complete the superintendent's performance evaluation for the 22-23 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Voting is open.
That's what you meant. I understand.
Yeah, I actually set that up. I looked at how they'd done that previously. Motion passes 4-0. It is, I have 7:59. Okay, let me save that real quick. Okay. I'm gonna turn off the feed.
Yeah. Catch Teresa talking about us.
Yeah. I just don't feel very good. Just to come back into open session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, call for the vote.
1 second, Mr. Who made the motion?
Mr. Tatham, second by Ms. Feathers.
No.
Ms. Feathers, second by Mr. Tatham. I forgot already.
Not you too.
We're gonna hold up cards.
I'd still mess it up. Who are you?
Okay, voice vote on that.
Voice vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, it's 3-0, and it is 9:24 PM.
correct.
Okay,
You ready?
you save that? Oh, shoot. I had an item on there to return to open session. I'll note that as such. Hold on.
Oh, you did. I didn't pay attention.
It's okay, I'll fix this. Hold on. So let me go down. So that open session vote, that was Pam and Lucas seconded?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody voted yes, correct?
Correct.
Cross is not present.
Correct.
Save it. I can fix that one back in, that's fine. Okay.
The Preston County Board of Education has completed the evaluation of Superintendent Mr. Bradley R. Martin for the 2022-2023 school year. The board affirms that Mr. Martin has met the goals set forth last year. The Board of Education affirms that we are moving in the correct direction to enhance learning development of Preston County students, and also realizes that there are areas for continued development and opportunities for further enhancement. We believe that with total collaboration between school building staff, service personnel, central office staff, and our five-member Board of Education, we can continue to progress our system. And I want to thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
At this time, anything for the next agenda? We've already talked about the ones that you're added on with the pre-K. Anything else?
Did we, like, since we lost our policy, Mr. Rozier? Didn't we talk before about, like, checking into some?
Yeah, we've had an initial consultation with Neola, and I can follow back up. It was pretty it was quite a bit of money, but we may need to look at.
If that's not the avenue, like, can we find another Mr.?
Did Mr. Rozier recommend anyone?
Yeah, because I think,
He didn't provide, and there's just not a lot of people around that are doing that.
I think we should try to put a little effort in to try to find somebody. And
I can reach back out.
900 pages of.
I mean, honestly, the vast majority of the state is using Neola. We can go that route. I can get a fresh quote. And just, I wanted to talk with them though about their policy. My only concern with that is they will give you a compliant policy, but you lose some of the personalization of your local policy document in doing that. You become very much a
Cookie jar.
yes, cookie cutter. That would be, I guess, the drawback to that. Whereas
Is that with less room to, like, tweak it?
I think it still can be changed. It's just, maybe if I can see if Mr., I think his name is Kalebach, if he could, maybe even join us by phone. He's over in the Kaiser area, so he's not terribly far from here. Maybe to do a brief presentation for you guys to come to maybe answer some of those questions.
Or ideally, another individual that we could
Sure.
just put our trust into to. Okay.
Okay,
That's all I had.
certainly.
I had to say something.
Anything else? Hearing none, entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tatham, second by Ms. Feathers. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. Actually, it's on there.
Voting is open. Motion passes 3-0, and it is 9:28. Let me go get the feed off. Okay, turn this one off.
Are we off?
Don't wait, one shot.
Not yet, hold on.